I say in the introduction to magnetic field that when I'm away from Marsden, either in time or distance, I get the opportunity to mythologize about it. Well, I'm doing a lot of mythologizing at the moment because even though it's just over the hill, it's sort of out of bounds. Well, I don't know whether it is out of bounds or not under these very woolly quarantine rules, but this week I'm playing it safe and I'm reading a poem in my shed. A shed in Yorkshire is sometimes known as a sulking hole, but I suppose there are worse places to be and worse places to sulk. When I was young and living at home, a sort of a misdemeanour in the house was punishable with a chore. If you'd done something wrong, you were given a task, and I resented it at the time. Though as a parent, I now see the justice of it. Wouldn't you agree with that, camera operator?
No comment.
Her judgment's been blurred by the Great Confinement. Anyway, one of the very high tariff punishments was to cut the hedge, which was quite a chore really, because the hedge was sort of big and hairy and ran the length of the garden, and it took all day to cut with these very rusty, very old, very heavy shears, and they had to be collected from the cellar where they hung on a wall, and they were kept down there like a sort of prisoner in a dungeon. So my dad makes a sort of silent movie appearance at the end of this poem, and slightly steals the show. So the poem is called Privet. This is a piece of privet, and that's what most domestic hedges are cultivated from. Common or garden, or in this case common and garden, privet. Because I'd done wrong, I was sent to hell. Down black steps to the airless tombs of mothballed contraptions and broken tools. Piled on a shelf, every daffodil bulb was an animal skull or shrunken head. Every drawer a seed tray of mildew and rust. In its alcove shrine, a bottle of meths stood corked and purple like a pickled saint. I inched ahead, pushed the door of the furthest crypt, where starlight broke in through shuttered vents, and there were the shears, balanced on two nails, hanging cruciform on the whitewashed wall. And because I'd done wrong, I was sent to the end of the garden to cut the hedge. That dividing line between moor and lawn, gone haywire that summer, all stem and stalk where there should have been contour and form. The shears were a crude beast, lumpen, pre-war, rolling pin handles on Viking swords, an oiled rivet that rolled like a slow eye, jaws that opened to the tips of its wings, then closed with an executioner's lisp. I snipped and prodded at first, pecked at strands, then cropped and hacked, watching spiders scuttle for tunnels and bolt holes of woven silk, and found further in an abandoned nest like a begging bowl or a pauper's wreath, till 2 hours later the hedge stood scalped and fleeced, raw-looking, stripped of its green, my hands blistered, my feet in a litter of broken arrows and arrowhead leaves. He came from the house to inspect the work, didn't speak, ran his eye over the levelled crown and shorn flanks. Then for no reason except for the sense that comes from doing a thing for its own sake, he lifted me up in his arms and laid me down on top of the hedge, just lowered me onto that bed of twigs, and I floated there, cushioned and buoyed by a million matchwood fingertips, held by nothing but needling spokes and spikes, released to the universe, buried in sky.